Hello and welcome to Hawkeye Nation, and this is HawkCast, your Iowa football, basketball, and recruiting podcast brought to you by Hawkeye Beacon and Rivals.com. I'm your lead analyst and host, Eliot Clough, at Eliot Clough on Twitter, joined as always by managing editor Ross Binder here on this Tuesday evening. In this portal era, I always have to see what day it is before I say the day of the week here because, like Ross and I were just talking about, little all over the place at all times right now, whether it is recruiting, spring ball, the portal, what have you. We are all over the place and we have got you covered here on HawkCast. So before we start, make sure that you subscribe wherever you're listening, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Drop that like and comment there on YouTube, the rate and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. as well. And join us on Hawkeye Beacon. Premium subscribers get all this content. We are constantly talking about the portal right now. It's whether it's contacts, whether it's how the Zoom meetings have gone, whether it's how visits go, whether I was expecting a commitment. We've been on it from the jump. And that's what we're going to start talking about today. Portal. Ben McCollum's portal haul thus far, you get arguably the best transfer portal player in the country in Bennett Stirts. You get other guys from that Drake team and Tavian Banks, Cam Maniau, Isaiah Howard, Cale Combs, and then you bring back Cooper Koch. So let's start, Ross. Guy we just had on the podcast last week, and Bennett Stirts, who shared that he's not going to go to the NBA draft or through the process. He's coming back to Iowa or just going straight to Iowa, wants to focus on being a Hawkeye, all that good stuff. Let's talk about Bennett first. How big of a win is that for him to be your cornerstone of this class?
I think that's huge. I mean, you said it already. He is one of, if he's not the top guy in the portal, he is, top three, top five. Like he is way, way, way up that list. And so that alone is a huge win for Iowa to get a guy, that good that, he was pretty locked into Iowa because of his relationship with McCollum, which obviously is a huge, huge advantage for the Hawkeyes. But without that, he would have, probably he would have had his pick of programs around the country to go to. So obviously, yeah, getting him is huge, and he just looks like a great fit for what Iowa needs. As if you're a rebuilding team, like especially in college basketball, what do you want more necessarily than like an experienced, really heady, really good shooter, great guy with the ball handling, and just he's gonna initiate the offense. Like guard play is so huge in college basketball. We saw it in the tournament, all every round. And with Bennett Stirts, Iowa's got one of the best guards potentially in America, and a guy that has a ton of experience. Led Drake to 30 plus wins last year, won the MVC, beat Missouri in the tournament. Had a run against Texas Tech in the second round. So like that's just a huge win on every level, I think. Like he's a good, it's only a 1 year thing, but whatever. You knew that's what you're getting going into it. But for that first year for McCollum, like that is a great, centerpiece building block to, start that Iowa roster and start, what he's going to do with the program. Like that's a dude that's totally bought in to McCollum and like everything that he preaches and wants to do. So like, yeah, I just can't think of a better guy to like kind of be the face of Hawkeye basketball next year than Bennett.
1 year, 30 plus games, hell of a lot better than no years and no games, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
that's it's that simple. And I mean, we were just talking about this too with the size of the guards. He's 6'4". He's 6'4". He's not a small guard. How long has it been at Iowa since you've had really, really good, consistent point guard play?
It's been on several years. I mean, yeah, I mean, it depends like what you think about the J-Bo era. Like, he great passer, great shooter, problems on the defensive end. So, there was some give and take. Probably that really high level, like on both ends of the court. I don't know, maybe you go back to almost like, Devin Marble, which was many, many years ago. There have been obviously other good guys. Mike Gasol was good, but not the best shooter necessarily. So yeah, I mean, this is a lead guard with size, with shooting ability, passing ability, defense. Like that total package is not something Iowa's had a lot of at the guard position for a while. You're right.
And he played 39 and a half minutes a game this year.
I hope to God he doesn't play that much for Iowa. Like, he's awesome, but man, you're gonna in the Big Ten, you're gonna wear that dude into dust by February if he's gonna have to rest more in at the Big Ten level. It just you can't play that much.
And I think McCollum is wanting to go get more shooting than what he had last year. They don't have that currently,
Yep.
so that's a need in the portal, and we'll talk about that momentarily. But um, this is, I mean, I can't help but watch him and think this is Josh Dix. This is maybe a better version of Josh Dix.
Yeah.
More of a ball dominant Josh Dix that creates for others too. And it's not like Josh
Yeah.
couldn't do that, but I mean,
More
Bennett
ball
does it at such a
dominant.
high level.
Yeah, more ball dominant and maybe more consistent. Dix was excellent for Iowa the last couple of years, especially last year, but there were definitely some games where, his he was just not able to get into the flow and that really hurt. Especially last year because Iowa had so few scoring options that if Dix was, having an off night, they were really struggling to find a way to win. But yeah, you don't feel like that's as quite as likely to happen with Sturts. I feel that he's not going to have those quiet games that Dick's had on occasion.
Um, yeah, I mean that's just a phenomenal place to start, right? And we basically knew it right away. And I think most
Yeah,
people assumed it was going to happen, but I mean, like Bennett didn't even wait like Cam Maniow did. He was just like
yeah,
right off the bat, like this is where I'm going. And I can tell you, just generally speaking, but I also just know this for a fact, is coaches and teams ignore the do not contact tag in the portal,
yep,
especially if money's involved. Because the way I phrased it this way for our premium subscribers like a week or two ago, was that Bennett was being offered like significantly more than Iowa's entire NIL budget last year, just for him
yeah,
to go to some of these places. And he turned it down to go to Iowa to follow Ben McCollum. And I think that's telling. I mean, in talking to him and to some of the other guys, it's kind of, I mean, even being at a place like Iowa where there is that small budget and like players like Josh Dick stuck around and Peyton Sandford stuck around when they could have gone and made more money. Um,
hmm
it's still shocking because Sturts could have probably gone to Kentucky, to Kansas, and made
yeah,
a lot of money and been coached at a really high level. But he
absolutely.
chose to stay with McCollum. So I just think that's really telling of, well, one, their relationship, but McCollum's ability to coach. And talk about like a selling point in that you can, I mean, to bigs, to other guards of like you're going to play with a guy who's going to create for you, who has played at this high level, who is going to cause so much gravity that it's going to make you better. Um, and McCollum has had this history of guard development, but again, D2 level, like you have to take that with a grain of salt, right? Especially if you're a recruit. Um, but now you can say he did
Yep,
it last year. He may be
yep.
doing it right now. He's going to do it again at this next level. And
I
I mean, why wouldn't you want to play with a guy like that who's not only that good, but makes you better and other people around himself better?
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing about Sturts' decision is that it's a really, you know, s- impressive sign of how much he's bought into McCollum and what he thinks he can do at Iowa, because like you said, he had other options, that he could have gone to other schools and, if he thought he needed to, he didn't think Iowa was going to be a place where he could be successful. Like he certainly could have, probably gone to Kansas or Kentucky, Illinois, what have you, But he believes in McCollum and what he's doing so much that, he definitely thinks he and Iowa can be successful next year. So I think that's a great endorsement of McCollum and a huge, that's the message you should be, sending to players in the portal and out on the recruiting trail. Like, hey, this guy who is one of the top guys available in the transfer portal believes that strongly in McCollum and Iowa. So that's a hell of a message.
Hell of a start in having Sturts there. Obviously, several other guys from Drake following along. God, I can't tell you how many times I've seen either somebody calling Iowa the Iowa Bulldogs or like Drake East or whatever.
We're going to get a
Like
lot
it
of that
was
for the next 12 months.
Yeah, right. It was fine for like a week, and now my mentions and all of our comments
Ugh.
on our Facebook page is just flooded with, and I was just like, it wasn't funny the first time, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like I get it, especially if you're a Drake fan, like coming from you and I, going to school there, I might have been a little salty if that was happening somewhere, but um,
I mean, they're going to be known as like the Drake Five or whatever, just because of the way where they all came from Drake. They all went to Iowa and, in the span of a week, basically. So,
right,
like,
and
they're going to just be kind of connected and tied together. So,
on top of that, Ben bringing Josh Sash, Connor Wheeler, and Bryson Williams at this point in time. Probably more folks from Drake coming along, so it's just going to have that tag, and we're going to have to deal with it. It's the same thing of, well, what about the offense under Brian Ferentz? So, uh,
yeah, I mean, the thing with this is that I don't think it's going to last more than like, you know, 6 months or a year or whatever, like once Sturts graduates and, once those guys the other guys have been at Iowa for a year, like they're going to be Hawkeyes at that point. Like they're not going to remember that oh, these guys were all at Drake. It's like, yeah, they started there, sure, but well, some of them started at Wyoming. But
right. Yeah, that is true. Um, Speaking of which, Cam Maniow, Cale Combs, they were the first two to commit other than Bennett Stirts out of the portal, started their careers at Wyoming. Maniow was their starting center at just 6'8" last year at Drake. They both followed Bryson Williams from Wyoming to Drake. And I think Maniow and then Tavian Banks are probably the two guys that you look at other than Sturts and say they're physically ready for the Big Ten. And going into prep for the portal and assuming it was going to be McCollum, we talked a little bit behind the scenes about just saying like I only think it's going to be Banks and Maniow and Sturts. Like I didn't think Cale Combs or Howard were an option until I really watched and spoke to a few people. But Maniow and Banks, I think you have to slot Maniow at your four or maybe come off the bench. Banks is probably a 3-4 tweener. He's got to grow as a ball handler, got to grow as a shooter. But I think Banks is a win and Maniow is a win because of how hard they play. Not something that Iowa fans have seen a ton of on the boards and on defense. And Banks is a guy that wants to guard the opposing team's best player. Said it when I spoke to him and wrote about this and shared it with our premium subscribers. Is he said, I love to play defense. I love to match up with Bennett in practice. And like as someone who's been on the beat for 2 years and for a fan base that hasn't heard about or seen a lot of defense, that's big.
yeah, absolutely. I think those guys, like you said, they both have like Big Ten ready bodies, pretty much Big Ten athleticism. Like they're guys you can see coming in and competing at a Big Ten level for sure. Whether that's necessarily as a starter or off the bench, I think that's TBD, and that's going to depend on how else, how they fill out the rest of the roster, over the next few weeks and months and so on. Yeah, it definitely like. Yeah, I mean the stuff with David or Banks is really exciting in terms of getting that kind of potentially defensive stopper. Like it's been a long time since Iowa's had a guy like that is eager and excited to D up on the guy and try and lock him down and has the tools to do it. So that is a huge addition. Um, and yeah, I think those guys are going to be real good parts of the rotation.
And then you move down, and I think Isaiah Howard is the guy that's more of a long-term play from all of these guys. Howard, there athletically, I think he needs to add some weight. He's 6'5". He's another guy that's played some really, really good defense and effort guy. Scored over 3,000 points a game in high school, 34 and a half points a game as a senior. So
There's
it's
some
a
scoring
different
chops
level.
there. I mean,
Right,
yeah.
right. It's a different level. I think he was playing at a smaller level in Missouri, but still, like, and he also had an offer from North Dakota State, was going to go there before he decommitted and then ended up at Drake. I think he's more of your high end ad from this group because he's young, but he can also play defense. He's a bigger guard. He's shown some signs of shooting. He's thrown down some pretty nasty dunks. And he's an effort guy. And then you look at Cale Combs, and I think he's a depth piece. I think he could be part of the rotation. He's an athlete. He plays defense. He's a guy that was offered by Tim Lester for football out of high school in Western
Wow.
Michigan. Yeah, played wide receiver. Had
Yeah.
had several receiver offers. Missouri State was one that offered him. Like maybe MAC and FCS schools mostly to play receiver. He chose to play basketball. He was choosing between Northwest Missouri State and Wyoming, which is a hell of a like dichotomy in his recruitment. So he knew McCollum, and then he went to Wyoming under Jeff Linder, not the Cedar Rapids Gazette writer, the basketball coach, and and ended up following Bryson Williams to Drake. And I can see it. Like you watch him play, and he's a fluid athlete. I don't think his efficiency was great, but his ability to finish at the rim. I think he's a lefty. He's a guy that navigates into space and passes a good shot for himself for a great shot. So he's a playmaker for others. I initially didn't have him on a who could follow McCollum from Drake to Iowa article because the numbers weren't exactly, they didn't pop and you didn't see like the
Hmm.
consistent defensive like winning plays. Not that he didn't make winning plays, but it didn't pop like Isaiah Howard, right? So I
Yep.
didn't have him on my list, and then I went back and watched some film, and it's like, okay, having a guy like this off your bench, maybe play 8 to 12 minutes on a regular basis. Maybe a guy that's just like,
Yeah.
sees a lot of the court in relief. Is like you need to get Bennett off the court for 5 minutes. There you go, sort of situation.
Yeah. I think a lot of those guys are interesting or exciting in the potential for them to kind of, be inserted off the bench and really add some energy and
That's
potentially
Howard.
like some really,
That's
yeah,
Howard for sure.
and like some just attack on the defensive side. Like when Iowa maybe, needs to kind of change the flow of a game or get some stops. Like having those guys that can come in and help do that, I think is a really good piece to have available.
Yeah. And even in a scenario where, and I don't think I don't remember Fran really ever utilizing this other than like Carter Kingsbury against Washington, where it was like, using Cale Combs or maybe Howard, but I think Howard's going to be more of a rotational piece. But using a player like Cale Combs who you could trust defensively and just say, go irritate the hell out of that guy. I don't care how many fouls you pick up, just go irritate the hell out of him. I
Yeah,
think Combs can be that while also being trusted to, not commit turnovers on the offensive
right.
side of the ball. So, and then now that we've talked about all the Drake guys, talk about Cooper Koch coming back. I think that's a huge win. I don't necessarily see him as a starter in his second year of college ball, just given that he only played 10 games last year. He'll technically be a freshman off a medical red shirt, which is huge, having him for 4 years, presumably, unless he leaves early for the NBA. Um, but that's a high level shooter. He was a 4-star recruit, committed to Iowa early, but he had an offer from Purdue and or surely would have been offered from like Indiana, and I think he had one from Illinois.
Hmm.
So J.R. Koch's son, legacy recruit. And I think he can grow as a defender. Obviously, that wasn't much of an emphasis in his 1 year of college ball. Um,
Yeah,
but I really, really like bringing him back. Obviously, missing out on Josh. Dix and Price Sanford hurts, but bringing back Cooper Koch, I think was a big win. And I think I said this on a radio show or something, but McCollum talking about Tom Davis in that introductory presser had me think
Hmm.
with Cooper in the back. I was like,
Yeah.
I think he's coming back.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure.
Yeah, he's speaking the right language there.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Cooper's a guy that, when he committed to Iowa, everyone was really excited, and they were excited to, see what he could do coming in as a true freshman last year. And, it didn't work out. The injury, the health stuff he had was just really unfortunate, and really just he never could get a consistent like kind of run of games and like really get integrated into get that, get his feet just kind of solid in the college game and get the feel for the speed of the game and everything else. Like he'd play a game or two and then he was out for a few weeks and play a game or two and out. And even in the games he played, there wasn't a lot of consistent minutes or anything. So it was really just kind of a lost year, unfortunately, with that health stuff. But the potential is still the same as it was a year ago. He was still a tremendous shooter, just tremendous, overall skill set. He was a really good kid as a recruit. Nothing about that has changed for what he can bring to Iowa this coming season and the next few seasons. So, yeah, I mean, definitely not going to pencil him into a starting spot. Just, I mean, for no other reason than he just hasn't been able to play much at the college level yet. But that high level ability is still completely there. So yeah, you just want to see him, get some better luck on the health front, first of all, just, for his sake, as much as anything. And then, if he gets that, then he can, start playing more consistently and really show what he can do and really kind of get his feet wet and really get established in the college game and with the Hawkeyes. And then I think we'll really see what he can do and have a better sense of maybe what his ceiling is here.
The most minutes he played in a game was 21 against New Orleans when Iowa won by 47.
Yeah.
And then he scored 14 points when Iowa beat New Hampshire by 42. So he
Yeah. I mean,
played
his,
19 minutes that game, but like the most like legitimate experience that I would say he got against higher level competition would be against Washington State when they played him in Moline. He played 13 minutes. Then he played against Utah State 5 minutes in Kansas City, 7 minutes against Utah, um, 10 minutes against Wisconsin when they got shit stomped in Madison. So I think there's enough for him. Like total played 136 minutes for 10 games.
13
Not
minutes a
ideal.
game. Yeah.
Right. Not ideal. But I do think you get a sense of the speed and the difference in the physicality. It would have been
Hmm.
good for him to play a little bit more Big Ten ball to get more of a sense of that.
Yep.
Um, but I think this summer will be really good. I think we're going to see a different player, especially defensively, because, you know, McCollum strikes me as a guy that would be willing to say, Cooper, your garden starts today, and say that to him every day just to
Yeah.
make like to get him going.
Yep.
That would not surprise me at all. And he can grow a lot in that space as a defender, because for a long time he's been able to rely on his frame, and now you can't do that at this level.
Yep.
Um, so I would also, I mean, I'm kind of in a space of assuming that Carter Kingsbury is going to be back
Hmm.
because for McCollum to talk about the 90s and how big that era was, and then to tell a legacy recruit from that era to skedaddle would just be a little iffy, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think the only thing is if Carter decided he wanted to go somewhere else and try and, get a bigger role or more minutes or something. No one would begrudge him for that, of course. But everything we've heard so far is that he's still there, still with the program. So I don't, until that changes, I think, yeah, we're definitely penciling him into being a part of that team next year. What that role will look like, again, totally dependent on who else Iowa adds through the portal. I would be surprised if Kingsbury was playing a heavy role for Iowa, certainly. That seems like it would be pretty shocking. But definitely could be a guy who comes off the bench and adds a little shooting or adds some size. Maybe he focuses on rebounding or something. So yeah, there's some he can carve out a little niche probably.
Some value to scout team for sure, like he's provided the last
Absolutely.
few years.
Yeah.
Uh, guy, Peyton, what did he say? He said something like, if Carter's not the strongest guy on the team, it was either him or Evan Bronze. I mean, you can tell Carter's got some meat on his
Yeah.
bones. I don't
Yeah.
know how else to phrase that,
Yeah.
but yeah. So
I don't know that I would call him like jacked per se, but he's strong.
yeah,
Strong dude.
yeah. So, I would assume he's back. That puts Iowa at one, two, three, four, five, six,
7.
seven guys. I am also assuming that they've got another player in the 25 class that'll be um, probably announcing some level of a commitment sooner rather than later. Premium subscribers will be privy to that information. So if you want to join us, iowa.rivals.com/subscribe. Um, so, Ross, I posed this question, and we, we were talking about this before the pod too, of like, what would you grade Iowa's roster so far? And some people are like, well, it's incomplete. Well, yeah, that's the point. I said so
Yeah.
far.
Right.
What would you grade it so far, Ross?
I'm in kind of that B range, B minus C range, because I think Sturts is a home run. That's an A plus pickup on its own. The other guys, it's going to depend a lot, I think, on what else Iowa picks up and what their roles end up being. Like, if the other Drake guys end up being the rest of Iowa's starting five, I'm concerned about what Iowa's going to be doing in the
Yo.
Big Ten next year, right? Yeah, like I like them. I think they can have roles, but a starting role and being relied on that much, that's probably not the role I envision for them. So um, definitely wanting to see what the other guys get. But like I said, I think grading on what I was done so far, that B minus range feels like where we're at because you've got the great foundation with Sturts, and I think the other Drake guys are all very positive additions who can definitely work well with what McCollum wants to do and be key pieces. And then Cooper Koch is great to bring back. Excited to see what he can do. So uh, for me, it's a good start. A lot more work to go. So I guess I'm probably a little bit more B minusy because yeah, I mean just with what they have so far, like is this a team that could compete in the Big Ten right now? No, it would not.
No,
So
no,
so
no.
yeah, like they've put down those seeds in the ground and they're starting to come up. Sturts is like he's a tree already. He's fast growing, but they got to get more, and then the grade can be reassessed. But for right now, I'm at a B minus, I guess.
I'm in a similar spot, C plus, B minus. Had they been able to bring Josh Dix back, then you're moving towards B plus, A minus range.
Yeah, if you get Dix, if you get, they've been linked a little bit with a couple bigs that have opted to go to other schools. If they would have got one of those guys, I'd feel a lot better because we're going to talk about this next, what they still need to do in the portal. But there are some pretty big holes that they still need to address with this roster. And yeah, had they been able to do that, for sure, I'd be looking at that get letter grade more favorably.
So those needs, they
I mean,
definitely need a big. They
I,
definitely need a big.
I was gonna
Or
say
two.
to me, their needs come down to two things: size and shooting. Those are they got to get both of those things.
Yeah.
Um,
One of the guys that we talked about on the board and that we got some intel on and ended up at Wisconsin is Austin Rapp, who would have provided both of those things. 6'10" guy from Portland. I think he made 91 threes this year, which was the second most
wow,
by freshmen in the country. I think he led or was second in his conference, the WAC in three pointers made, which
he would have been a dream
also
fit.
Right. And he's Australian. Why the hell would you end up at Wisconsin or I mean or Iowa for that
Yeah,
matter, right? Like
totally
it's
random.
yeah, it's gonna be cold there, pal.
Yeah.
If he ended up at Iowa, he could have been friends with Reese Dakin. So
That's true. It's
his
true.
loss. Um
Yeah.
but to revert back to the topic at hand, as far as needs, I think center power forward depth is big because you're just not going to pass with 6'8" center in the Big Ten. You're just not.
I
You're skating on thin ice in the MVC, and they made it work all year because of the low possession rate and because how hard Cam Manning plays. For him to be your center at the Big Ten level, you better be running small ball and you better be running.
yeah, I just don't see that working in the Big Ten. There are just too many good big guys in this conference that you got to have somebody that can defend those guys and help slow them down. And you got to have guys that can go up and get rebounds. I mean, it's not all about size and rebounding. It's about, energy, effort, and reading the game and everything. But size matters a lot too. And you need that. And Iowa fans saw that play out night after night this last season. Like that was a glaring flaw in the roster construction coming into this season, getting that power forward or four that could defend and rebound, and they just didn't have it. And it hurt early in the season, and it was killer after Freeman went down, and they just, you know, God bless Bronze and Mulvey and Lodgy, and they played hard, did what they could, but it's just Iowa didn't have the type of bodies and talent at those positions they really needed, and that to me is something McCollum has got to try and address, or Iowa's going to have similar issues this coming season.
And then shooting, like you mentioned, this team needs it. Combs and Howard did it sparingly. Obviously, Cotch hasn't made it through a whole season. Um, but to me, you're looking at probably, unfortunately, like a Josh Dix type, where you can have him as a secondary ball handler and you can trust him to just make shots.
Hmm.
Because Bennett Stirts cannot do it all on his own. That is just not realistic. You got to bring in guys who can knock down shots that can create for others a little bit, that can play with the ball in their hands. Because, like we've said, Bennett Stirts is not going to play 39 and a half minutes at the
No.
Big Ten level. So you need help there. And, based on what they've gone after it to this point, I think they know what their needs are. Um, some names that we've brought up and that we'll continue to talk about on our premium board as well. And we've done breakdowns, transfer portal target breakdowns of three of these four guys, and I have the fourth coming tonight after we're done recording this. And that fourth is Brandon Housen. That's one that I think sticks out to a lot of people. Shot 38% this year. I think he made it from deep, almost 39%. Um, volume shooter from three. That's one that I think would be an excellent addition to playoff Sturts. Duke Brennan from Grand Canyon, who's hearing from a lot of programs. I talked to Brendan Housen's agent today, and he's hearing from a lot of programs. Duke Brennan, same thing, a lot of programs. Both of those guys have value that a lot of teams could use. Brennan damn near averaged a double double, did average a double double in conference play this year. Then you look at Honor Huff, who is 5'10" and 170 pounds, but can shoot the shit out of the ball. I mean, we were talking like his release is lightning quick. His ability to square up towards the basket and bam, make shots is nuts. Then you go to Tayshawn Comer, who to me, I put on the board, somebody responded to this. He's like a poor man's Washington version of Markel Fultz to me, like a shooter combo guard. His usage rate was super high, and that made his efficiency rate really low. But he's also playing for Evansville, who I can confirm
Not
the
good.
doormat of the MVC.
Yeah.
Routinely, like they hired Todd Licklider for 2.5 years, and he didn't make
Oof.
them any better. Like, just like, ooh,
Yikes.
bad.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I mean, he was great in college. I
yeah.
mean, there's a reason he was the number one draft pick. Like, it
I'm
doesn't
not.
matter what
That's not what
happened.
I'm saying with Tayshawn Coleman,
No,
by the way.
absolutely not. No, and I'm just saying,
You.
like that is a positive comparison. Like, it doesn't matter what has happened to Fultz in the NBA. Like, that's irrelevant to to our discussion. Like as a college player, like as a Husky at Washington, like that dude was really good. So yeah, if he can have a game, similar at all to that, that could be a really nice add for Iowa.
You want to clean up that efficiency, and I think by way of he's also 6'1", which I don't love. If he was 6'3", 6'4", I'd be more into that. But
I mean, the efficiency thing should be helped a little bit by, you know, if he was the dude on Evansville, so like he had to do it all. Like
that's what I'm
at
saying.
Iowa, he's gonna be what, third option probably, hopefully.
Exactly.
So it's like, okay, yeah, I don't have to do everything. So,
And assuming he buys into that,
and he should get, hopefully Sturts can get him some, open looks and stuff. So he's not,
right,
just like, oh my God, I got to do it all. I got to, force up this shot because if I don't, nobody else is gonna. So,
right. And so we'll see on all four of those guys. Iowa's not in an ideal position in terms of NIL. It's better. Definitely going to be, I'm assuming, especially with the revenue share and all that. I'm assuming that goes there. I went through it. I tried to pay attention to that. It's all over my head. I still think Iowa's going to be fine in terms of numbers, um, financially. They're going to need to pay Bennett Stirts, just like his commitment to McCollum or not. Like you got to pay
mhm.
that guy.
Yep.
And then you probably want to go out and get two or three more guys that you can drop a bag on, so to speak, and then fill out your roster because like getting Tavian Banks and Cam Maniau and Isaiah Howard and Cale Combs is awesome. Cooper Koch is awesome, but you don't need to pay them each $500,000. They're just
Yeah.
not that, echelon of portal target.
Nope.
So that's where I was at currently. And of course, we'll keep updating our premium subscribers as things transpire and they fill out the staff. A couple names that have been thrown out there,
They
and
down to
talked about, but
one position left on the staff then, or
I genuinely don't know. It's like you get five assistants, but then you get to fill it out with staffers, and so right
yeah,
now it's Bryson Williams, um, Josh Sash, Connor Wheeler, and Ben. And then so yeah, it'd be one. And there's been rumors around what other people have talked about on podcasts and Tobin Anderson. We've provided some updates again on the board regarding that. I think that'd be a home run hire. He's from Iowa. You could probably go and get some of his players from Iona. That was not a bad team. And if you fill out your roster with guys like that, there are two guys on that roster that I thought would be, I went and looked, that I thought would be really good additions. So again, these last few topics, all speculation. We haven't,
hmm
Iowa has not landed Duke Brennan or Brennanhausen as far as we know. As far as we know.
as of this
Anything could
recording,
change. By the
yeah,
time you're listening to this,
yeah,
I mean,
and we're doing
lots
this
of
on a
them.
Tuesday night, so
Yes, at 7 p.m.
yeah,
So there's still plenty of time. The sun is still out. So a lot of things could change even today. And if they do, we'll be back with a pod, I promise. But anything drastic anyway. But
yep,
yeah, I mean, I think some people have taken the oh they're Drake thing a little too far regarding roster construction. And this is the last thing that we'll talk about for the men, and then we should talk about the women a little bit before we get out of here. But I I've posted about guards that would be great additions, and people are in the comments saying we need a big. Well, no shit.
right. They
But
need
they
both
also want to add
guys,
guards.
right?
Who
Need
would have
both,
thought?
yeah.
Yes,
As
yeah.
far as the Drake thing goes, like I think it goes back to kind of what we were saying a few minutes ago, which is like if those guys, if you bring in the Drake five and they come in and that's your starting lineup next year, like is that good? No, it is not, frankly. But that doesn't have to be the case. That's almost certainly not going to be the case. Like they are still going to get some more guys out of the portal. So, and
Like
I don't
four or
think you're
five more guys. Like
right, right. There's a lot like Iowa has literally seven dudes right now, and that's assuming Kingsbury is one of them, which we're pretty sure he is, but we'll see. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of room left to add guys to that roster.
and a 25 recruiter too,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah.
mean, there Drake had some commits. but I'm assuming they're gonna, spread the net a little bit more. Nick Lewis is visiting on Saturday, which would be huge. Get a top
Yes.
60 recruit, 4-star right off the bat. They worked together on the under 18 Team USA last year. Ben McCollum and Lewis did, and man, like I've seen him on the EYBL circuit. Nick Lewis is legit. He needs to work
I
on the
mean,
jump shot, but like he can get downhill, he can create for others. He's 6'2", like, and he's strong, he's quick. I
yeah.
am a Nick Lewis fan, and I think if they if they got him, man, or like even if he arrives on campus and were to commit or something like that, that would be crazy, first of all.
Yeah.
He's already visited Vanderbilt, probably going to visit a few other schools after the dead period. But to land a player like that, a player that Iowa hasn't been able to get for a long time,
Hmm.
that'd be a
I mean,
hell of a start.
getting that guy, as a recruit and getting Lewis as a recruit and Sturts out of the portal, like that would be just a phenomenal way to start the Ben McCollum era at Iowa. Like those are just two really, really big gets, and the sort of player, like you said, Iowa has not, historically or recently, really, those are not the kind of guys that have tended to come to Iowa. Like Iowa doesn't get those higher profile guys coming in. So those would just be on that basis alone would be a really big win.
I do think you've got a legitimate pitch for Lewis, not only with McCollum coaching him, but like the history of point guards, being able to play with Bennett Stirts.
Hmm.
And it's like, I'm recruiting you to play point guard in a point guard centric offense team. Like, this is your quarterback, right?
Hmm.
And you get to play with arguably like probably a top 5 point guard in the country next year. Like to be able to do that is that's a tough opportunity to turn down. Now he's
Yeah,
hearing from Texas as well. Sean Miller, who was at Xavier, going to Texas. I think that's going to be a tough one to beat, assuming that that shakes out and he's able to visit
yeah,
and all that. Um, Vanderbilt, I'm not exactly concerned about because it's Vanderbilt, even though
yeah,
they had a pretty good season. They did
yeah.
do some good things in the SEC. I just think I think that Iowa is in a decent spot there. Do I think he's 100% going to be a Hawkeye? I do not. But
No, I think he's a guy you can get him on campus and try to sell him on everything with that visit. I think that's huge. Like you said, Texas is going to be a major player if they get into that competition. They just have, tremendous resources and
he
uh, you
just
know,
coach that he previously committed to.
right, coach he has a connection with. Texas is their freaking Texas. Like that's one of the biggest brand names in college sports. So tough to that's a big dog to compete with.
They're starting fresh, and that'd be a good player to start with if
Yep.
you're Sean Miller.
Yep.
So on to the women. There hasn't been near as much conversation around the women right now as there
Yeah.
probably would be if Fran had stuck around. Jada Williams visits campus. Arizona guard ends up visiting Iowa State like the next day and
Yeah.
commits to,
It's
to the
there.
Cyclones.
Yep.
Right. Lots of conversation about Iowa backing off. Williams is a good player. I didn't really watch her tape. Braden Roberts provided that for us
Hmm.
at Hawkeye Beacon, who he does really good analysis and he really knows the women's game. Reports out there that Iowa showed interest in Avery Howell as well, who ended up at Washington. So whether you believe the scuttlebutt that Iowa didn't offer Jada or weren't interested, or they weren't interested in Jada, that's one thing. But two misses at this point in time. I don't think they're in a place to panic at all. Iowa has become an upper echelon program where they
Hmm.
will be able to pick from the litter, so to speak.
Hmm.
Obviously, it would have been good player wise, like putting them on the floor wise for Howell and Williams.
Yep.
But I don't think this is I think this is Jan Jensen, at least with Williams, from what some of the things we've heard. Uh, it's Jan sticking to her values, sticking to what she wants in the program. And if you don't fit that, she's not going to bring you in. And
Right.
I don't know. the intricacies of that, but uh, I think they're fine. There's plenty of time. There's plenty of players in the portal. Believe me, plenty of options, and
Yeah,
they'll get who they want. And I think what they need is a primary ball handler, and maybe some help in the front court. That is one thing that Jan said after
yep,
the tournament. But you've got Ava Hayden, you've got Hannah Stolke, and you've got Layla Hayes coming in. So maybe you need a little bit of, grit up there, and maybe you get
yeah,
that out of the portal. But I think, well, you're not going to get a Lucy Olson, right? That was a freaking grand slam of an ad out of the
yeah.
portal.
That was just
But
perfect timing,
you
perfect
gotta add
plan.
something. You gotta add something.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think Iowa definitely really needs that ball handling lead guard, especially with Lucy graduating and Aaliyah Guyton going into the portal. Like they're just not bringing anybody back with that much experience. You're bringing in some freshmen. How much do you want to put on Addie Deal's plate as a true freshman,
Or Taylor
um,
Stremlo. Like,
or Taylor Stremlo? Yeah,
do
as
you
a
want
as
her
a
to be your
sophomore.
lead guard as a sophomore? She's a good
Yeah,
player.
good player, good passer, had some turnover problems at times. So, some ups and downs, freshman, so you're going to expect that. But I think you do want that more experienced ball handler. I think that needs to be a priority. And I think it is. We saw it, Williams was here on a visit. So that's, the type of player that they are looking at clearly. And yeah, I think, Jan mentioned getting some size, like a little more athleticism. I think in the as far as the bigs or the post go, and she mentioned that right after that Oklahoma loss. So
It was glaring after that loss.
yeah, and I think that's certainly something they're going to target, so something they should target. Again, that's one of those things too, like everybody's trying to get good athletic bigs out of the portal. Like a lot of competition for those. Iowa, like you said, they're well positioned, probably better in women's basketball than in men's, frankly, to get higher profile targets out of the portal. The NIL resources comparatively probably better for the women. And the Caitlin Clark after effect is still there. I mean, this is a program that was in the national title game last year and the year before that, and they were back in the tournament and playing well this year. So they still have that glow kind of as one of the Big Ten's better teams, and so that's going to be appealing to girls out of the portal.
You know how what I didn't have in our outline that I think we need to talk about quickly?
I
Raina
don't know.
Harmon
Yes, yeah,
moving
yes,
on.
that's potentially a really big loss, because in addition to, obviously I was in the portal looking for players now, but Jan's looking for a new lead assistant because yeah, Raina Harmon took the Florida Gulf Coast job last week, which was interesting. Kind of came a little bit out of the blue, at least to me. It's a good job, good mid-major job. It's kind of been a platform for success for some other coaches recently. Raina, I think, is you know, if not overdue, like right on schedule, I think, to get an opportunity like this. She's been an excellent assistant for Iowa for the last 8 years, I believe. Just doing a super job on Lisa Bluter's staff and last year on Jan Jensen's staff. And, she was a kind of a guard focused coach in terms of her coaching responsibilities. And we saw what she could do there with obviously Caitlin Clark and Lucy Olson, Taylor McCabe, lots of other, Kate Martin, Kathleen Doyle. So lots of good guard play at Iowa over the last 7, 8 years. But I think where she's really going to be missed is, she was also the director of recruiting, and she was a really pivotal figure in that recruiting for Iowa, and she helped land that really good freshman class that came in this year, as well as that good freshman class Iowa has coming in next year with Deal and Journey Houston and Layla Hayes. So those are some big shoes to fill for her replacement.
It is. It is. We shall see. There are
Yeah.
one name out there is Kathleen Doyle, who we don't necessarily expect to step into Raina's spot, but
No, she would not because she just
right.
doesn't have the experience. She just was. she had some recruiting responsibilities in Virginia Tech this last year, but it was her first year. So, I could see her joining the staff maybe if, someone else moves up into that Harmon role or like I think we mentioned like Abby Stamp maybe as a candidate to do that. So yeah, lots of interesting things to watch there.
Yes, and we will have all of that covered at Hawkeye Beacon, iowa.rivals.com/subscribe if you haven't joined us today. We appreciate you listening as well. For those on YouTube, drop a like, drop a comment. Let us know what grade would you give these guys this portal class so
So
far.
far.
Say it with me. So far, but
No incompletes.
yes, yes. Drop that in the comments down there for us. Leave a rate and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. We really appreciate it. Also appreciate the response to the Bennett Stirts podcast. That's been awesome. Bennett's a really good guy. I think
Yeah,
you could get a sense of that in the pod. Really nice dude.
absolutely.
And I think Iowa fans are going to really like him. So if you haven't listened to that, you can go back and do that right now. About half an hour. Bennett was great. So you can do that. And that's it for this episode of Hawkcast. We appreciate you tuning in. For now, I am Eliot Clough at Eliot Clough on Twitter, joined by managing editor of Hawkeye Beacon, Ross Binder, and we will see you next time.